basically looking or exploring how micro-credentials and new forms of certifications are actually reshaping higher education globally as well as locally. Cuma sebelum saya teruskan dengan lebih lanjut, I would like to introduce myself first a little bit. My name is Nabila Abdullah and I am from UiTM. I belong to the Human Development Cluster dan saya juga telah diminta untuk mengadakan sedikit promosi ya sebab kita punya sesi pada hari ini secara amnya is being organised by Academy Professor Malaysia dan pada mungkin ada setengah daripada mereka yang dalam talian jika tidak tahu apa itu APM, APM ialah satu badan. We are an independent body. We aspire to provide intellectual insights, advice, constructive feedback on various aspects related to national development, socio-economic, policy. We also try to be the voice and serve as a check and balance to look at issues affecting Malaysians related to Malaysian education and whatnot. Bukannya education sector sahaja, kita merentas pelbagai sektor lah. Dan kepada mereka yang belum lagi menjadi member, please, we are open for membership. It is on voluntary basis. We are not political. Okay, so enough of that, I hope. So bersama saya pada hari ini, kita ada dua orang, we have two distinguished panelists. We have with us Prof. Dr. Hanim Saleh from Uni10. Welcome, Prof. Thank you very much for, for your willingness to be with us. She's a Fulbright visiting scholar at George Washington University, and she will be sharing insights on 7 credential trends currently rewiring US higher education. So the idea is to learn what other places are doing, and we hope we can emulate that in our local setting. And another distinguished panelist with us is Associate Professor Dr. Wan Zuhaini Saad, who is, as I think basically she's very well known. She's the chair of Magnetic, the director of CADE, lead UPM, and she will be contextualizing global trends within the Malaysian higher education practices, meaning to say she will be highlighting how micro-credential is being, introduced and popularized in our local setting. So without further ado, let's hear basically we have let's invite Prof. Dr. Hanim to start with the session. Prof?
Okay. Thank you so much, Prof. Nabila, my sahabat panelists, also Prof. Maja Dr. Wan Zuhaini, and all members, the participants as well. Let me just give me a bit of time to share my slide. Okay. Okay, lambat sikit. So I should be duplicating. Is it clear?
Just mine je, Prof. Apa tu? Okay. Good.
Dia lambat sikit kat you. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, it's clear?
Yes.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, thank you so much to Academy Professor Malaysia, specifically the Human Development Cluster, APM, for inviting me. And I'm going to share a little bit on my experience recently when I was in the US. So maybe hopefully this can be something that we can learn from. Basically, these findings are actually, I have to put a little bit of disclaimer here because this experience is basically to unpack the 7 major credentials trends, but of course the research is maybe quite limited scope. It is based on the experience with the non-degree credentials research network and Institute of Public Policy, the George Washington University in the US. So because, like in the US, there are so many universities, so many types of universities. So my findings is basically focused on what I gathered from our research network. So that's how I attach. And Institute of Public Policy, George Washington University is basically the deputy president of the NCRN. And Rutgers University is the president of the NCRN. So that's how we gather some information on some of the best practices throughout the United States. All right, so very briefly, these are my table of content: introduction, definition, the 7 trends and recommendations. So very quickly, let me share with you, like United States is a very big country, and currently there are about 1.8 million unique credentials with 134,491 providers. Based on this, there's one nonprofit organization, what they call as credential engines. They are monitoring or counting all these credentials. Credentials is a very broad term, which also they monitor not just micro credentials, but also other types of credentials like badges, certificates, degrees, secondary school diplomas, licenses, certifications, and so on. But maybe what we want to look at, the type of credentials here. Yeah, the US credential ecosystem is now numerically dominated by shorter modular digitally legible forms of recognition, especially the badges, the certificates, micro credentials, rather than degrees alone. And this is kind of like signal, okay, it's a major shift in how learning is packaged and signal. According to one survey conducted by Coursera from more than 2,000 students and employers in 6 regions, it is said that 96% of employers say micro-credentials strengthen a candidate's application, and 94% of students say that it can accelerate skills and development. So this is in the form of why nowadays, I think all over the world, not just in the US, in Malaysia as well, we've been talking about specifically micro-credentials because that is the type of credentials which attract a lot of people due to the small unit of learning that they can accomplish. And of course, the industry and the professional certificates also has gained a lot of attention, where 76% of the students are more likely to enroll in a degree program that offers industry micro-credentials. So we're not just talking about micro-credentials in the universities, but there are other types of micro-credentials offered by industry and professionals. So these are gaining attractions to the learners as well. And 88% of employers believe that professional certificates strengthen the candidate's job application. And 90% of students agree that a professional certificate will help them secure a job. Why do I coin the title today? Is basically because a lot of people are looking into this industry driven, okay? You cannot get away with this, right? So the issue is not whether degrees disappear, but whether degrees remain the only trusted currency of learning. In other words, due to this, even industry professionals, bodies, they also offer certificates. So this is how higher education are looking into all these requirements, all these attractions, or the trends, so that we can adopt or answer to this trend, basically. So let me just go a little bit on the definitions. We have talked about like what it means by traditional credentials. For example, we have bachelor, master, and so those are traditional credentials. There are also what we call non-degree. Maybe in Malaysia, we don't call it non-degree credentials. In the US, they call it non-degree. It's just other than the traditional. And maybe in Malaysia, we use alternative credentials. So parts of the country, they call it slightly different. But it's just saying that other than traditional, you have all other types of credentials. There are also certificates. I think maybe we know what certificate means. It's basically to show the completion of learning, but certifications is different. It's normally offered by industry because it's a verified competence. And now we come into micro-credentials. So micro-credentials can be offered from all sectors. Badges as well is just a visible signaling of skills. So before, maybe we talk a lot about micro-credential, badges are already there, you know, but now with micro-credentials, so sometimes the badges, we're talking about digital badges, yeah, not physical badges. So these digital badges show normally skill badges. But sometimes it also can be people can offer certificates with badges as well. So it depends on the offerings of the provider. And then we have stackable credentials. So this is also something that we want to look at, how you can progress and accumulate all the credentials. So let us go ahead and go for the first trend. Now we can see that the first trend is stackable credentials become the new curriculum architecture. So this is quite exciting now. A lot of universities try to make their credentials, especially micro credentials, can be stacked, you know, towards a final qualification. So this is how the universities can adapt, because industries, they already have this for a long time. But in the university, maybe we just have like a program. Okay, we do not have, previously we do not have like micro credentials with certain skills or certain requirements to add up to curriculum. Quite normally in a lot of universities, we do have micro credentials, but maybe they are separated, they are not stackable. But the stackable is more appealing to the learners. Okay, the logic is that learners and employees want shorter, more targeted, more quickly visible evidence of skills. But of course, according to what we understand, even in Malaysia, in ASEAN or OECD, also note that micro-credentials are valued because they can respond flexibly to labor market lifelong learning needs. So one of the example in the States is SUNY, State University of New York. They do have, or they will put up what are the design of the credentials that you can stack. So I give you the example. Another type is MIT. Of course, they have MicroMasters pathways, some online and partly physical. So they have a lot of combinations of micro credentials in a way. Arizona State University, so you can see this is how they depict the combinations. Certificate, get a master's degree, they have certificate plus additional coursework, or non-credit credential plus additional coursework, or certificate plus certificate, then you can get. So this is also something interesting to look at in this example. It's just 2 certificates, then they will get a master's degree. Another example is Houston City College. This is how they progress according to skills. A lot of community colleges, they offer technical skills, or towards a bachelor degree, they call it associate degree. So in this case, it goes from this certificate, you can see certificate 1, certificate 2, and then they got this applied associate in science. So all community colleges, normally they can go to bachelor's degree. So that is how they stack up from the certificate and associate degree and go to the bachelor's degree. So this is one of the model from one of the community colleges. So we can see a lot of community colleges are doing similar things. And number two is we can see now in the US how the employer and stakeholders co-design together. Co-design becomes a quality requirement. I think, of course, the main difference, we cannot compare US with Malaysia because Malaysia is so small, but US in terms of labor market is very, very critical. You need to they really need to study in the states or in the region. They do have some KPIs for their labor department to achieve certain percentage of skills people or they really have to answer to the labor market. So they really take things seriously. How do they design certain micro-credentials or certain credentials to actually make sure that they have or adapt to their what is needed for their labor market. So employers are influencing why universities recognize as value learning. So for example, they are not just working with academic certificates, but also work with big companies like Google, IBM, Microsoft, and other employers. Okay, the shift reflects a broader concern with career readiness, especially in the IT, cybersecurity, business, health, and data. I think we realize we've been talking about co-curating curriculum previously. Co-curate means you have the curriculum, but you get input from multi-stakeholders. But this is different. The idea now or the trend now is not you have the curriculum, you get feedback from the stakeholders. But they are moving forward to co-design from the beginning to design a new curriculum. So that's the difference, you know. We do have maybe in our requirements, we get feedback from stakeholders, from industry and so on, but the program is already there. But this one, they are trying to design a new curriculum that actually answer to these multi-stakeholders. So they call this project, so one of the example being handled by WorkCred, the Higher Learning Commission, and the League for Innovation in the Community Colleges. They call up all these learners, faculty, college leadership, industry and certification bodies, policymakers, because WorkCred is also an affiliation with NC and SI, the National Standard Institute, American National Standard Institute. So they look into the requirements of, in terms of the certification bodies, and also in terms of funding. I think this is one of the challenges. If you want to make sure you have a certifications from professional bodies or from industries, sometimes the cost is the problem. So you need to discuss with the policymakers. So in their case, it will be the state department, you know, if there are any budgets, any grants that will help these learners to move forward with these certifications. So that can be also one of the hurdle when we want to actually implement a new co-design micro-credentials or credentials. So these are some of the examples. We have University of Texas. They're working with the Texas state and they have Texas credentials for the future. So it's not just for University of Texas, but it's the system, the University of Texas system as well. So they have 35 entry-level professional certificates from Coursera, Google, IBM, and so on. So they need to get some funding to start this initiative. That's what they said here, no extra cost. So that is also one of the hurdle. Maybe if you really want to partner with big companies, it's good, but maybe the cost need to be taken care of. Okay, and then also Penn State, they have these manufacturing micro-credentials. If you look at Coursera for Campus, so Coursera also one of the online providers that provide all these universities can actually take this from big companies, the professional certificates or the industry certificates as part of their curriculum. So these are some of the universities: Hawaii Pacific University, Boise State, and in the US we have University of Arizona. So you can see different types of. So maybe these are a lot of it like IT or even basic data analytics program, or even career maybe. So this is the example that I mentioned, how do you co-design? It's not just like what we normally do is co-curating. You already have the curriculum, but this one is co-design, taking all the certifications to degree pathways. And work with these 4 colleges: Community College of Aurora, Delta College, Kirkwood, Community College, and Moraine Valley. You can see the area here for this example is in health, and also IT. Yeah, so I would say, although it's a trend, but it's also quite challenging to actually create a new kind of pathways. But this is good for in this situation, because they also work with the state to work this out until the students get their associate degree. Then they can continue to the degree level. So this is one of the trend. Number 3 is the convergence of credit, non-credit, and the taxonomies, the knowledge, the skills, and competency. Because in a university, you do have like curriculum and the co-curricular, continuing education, employee training. You also have the credit pathway. But nowadays, people try to blend things together, whether it's the main thing is there are short credentials, modular. It needs to lead somewhere. You need to map it out very clearly, whether it's credit or non-credit. If it's non-credit, what kind of skills that you get? It has to lead somewhere into another certificate, into advanced standing, or into a degree pathway. So in other words, learners are very clear of the progression function. And as a university, they kind of like try to adapt to this. Okay, why? Because a lot of times, if we ask the employers, they want skill base. They are looking for skill base. Yeah. At the same time, you also have a group lifelong learning. I think this market is also already in Malaysia. We already have Appel, for example, right, to cater this kind of people. So that's what it means by convergence of credit and non-credit. And some of these non-credits can be converted into credits, due to their lifelong learning experience. And at the same time, they are moving towards learning and employment records. I will talk about that later in one of the trends as well. So this is very important. So I give you an example of how some of these universities, they take the industry certificates as credit and also non-credit integration into their curriculum. So if they take it either they take it, for example, Hawaii Pacific University, they take the Google project management from Google, and they make it as a graduation requirement. So it doesn't matter whether there is no credit. I mean, learners still want it. This is one of the feedback. Although there is no credit, so that's the how you package your program nowadays. It is not necessarily everything has to be on credit. Credit is they are no more credit centric. They are more towards a combination of credit, non-credits, skills and knowledge, and competency. So it's a mix. So that is what they describe this. Okay. And we have other examples. Moving towards competency-based education means on skills, looking or mapping it into the professional standards or employer-defined competencies. For example, Purdue Global, I think people in IT is very much a lot advanced and easy to do this. Arizona State University, they look into skill taxonomies linked to labor market data, and they work it out. And then we have State University of New York as well. Okay. And number 4, we have digital credentialing as part of the trust infrastructure. We have talked about digital badge before. So this is what people want to see, or learners want to see. How do you actually present? The learners want to present what they have achieved. So the verification, metadata, issuer trust is very, very important. They have a lot of conferences and meetings in the United States talking about what kind of metadata, what kind of standards that they're using, because they are moving forward to a bigger learners records, or comprehensive learner records. Yeah. So universities are increasing using these digital badges, digital certificates, and learner records to make skills more visible and portable. Because we know, like, the portability is very, very important. The learners will move around, not just in the same country, they will go internationally and so on. So how credentials relate to one another is essential, especially if you want to make it stackable. So you need to have a trust infrastructure there. And people move towards usable for learners, not just learners, but advisors and policymakers. They want some data on this. So I give you some examples here from Ruggers. So a lot of these digital badges relates to the skills or experience that they obtain in the university. So maybe what's also main difference in United States and here is in the United States, there are more autonomy. They do not have national qualifications framework. They do not have that. So at least us, we have that, right? We know basically what are the specific quality and how do you come up with things. But what is good thing is they can experience a lot of things. They can experiment a lot of things because they are doing things based on either a regional quality assurance association or from accreditation, regional accreditation board. So they are not really at national level. So this is also one of the important issues for them as well. If you are not doing it as a standard a method in terms of the infrastructure of digital, then you're going to have problem making it transferable or making it portable across the states or across internationally. So what they do, basically, one of it is the digital badges. So these are some of the examples in Ruggers. They also have, maybe this one is small, but it says here there are 4 types of digital badges: standalone, academic, professional, student life badges. So it's not just the learners, the students get it, the staff also get their badges issued by Ruggers. And then this one is University of Maryland, Baltimore County. They also have a different type of badges. They actually do it according to the Bloom's taxonomy, the level 1, level 2, or level 3. So there are free basically to do whatever they want in terms of issuing badges, as long as there are, of course, they follow certain requirements according to the quality assurance. So they have things published, what are the things that they need to do in terms of the digital badges. Okay. Okay, this is the one that I mentioned earlier, why these digital badges or trust is very important, because the learners need to bring their records wherever they go, right? Maybe they're going to work across the states or they're going to work internationally. So one of the big projects at the national level currently and still ongoing, they set up at the national level, a subcommittee headed by this congressman. I'm quite fortunate to met him, Congressman Burgess Owens. I don't know if you're a fan of basketball. Long time ago, he was a baller. So he's now chairing the subcommittee on higher education and workforce development. So one of the initiative is to have this comprehensive learner and employment records. This is actually has been one of the trend as well all over the world. You know, people talking about what kind of standards that you need to use in order to ensure learners will be able to transfer what is kind of like your own CV, but it's a verified and trusted CV in a way, because it has records in terms of your academic records and also employment records. You know, it covers all the schools and the skills that you have, the degree, certification, licenses, competency, open badges, and all the things that you have. So it makes learners more visible to the employers, and it connects academic achievement with workplace recognition. So this also would help support stackability, portability, and digital verifiable pathways. So this is one of very recent and very important initiatives that they are talking about and still ongoing. So this is just an infographic showing, you know, previously you have your own traditional transcript within your university, and the trend now is all these universities try to have their own learners record, comprehensive learners record with skills, not just grades or where did you graduated from, but the skills, competency, professional milestones, and you know, with all these credentials, achievement, workplace, and holistic learning. So, what in a gist, people want to see a lifelong skills passport. So, I think Singapore has also embarked on this. I'm not sure how far Malaysia. Maybe Dr. Wan will mention about this, but I know MQA already started with the credit banks, but this one is beyond, is in terms of the professional milestone as well. This is an example. I also attach here some of the standards that they use. One at Tech. These standards are quite, the US will follow some of the OECD standards across the globe, so that they have the same standards as well. So I know in one of our discussions, India has already embarked this lifelong learning passport. In other countries, they are still developing. We've seen some of the initiatives, separate initiatives in other parts of the country, but it's just an apps like a online CV. But this one is actually more than that. It's not just an online CV, but they need to make sure that the standards that everyone use is the same standard, so they can actually read the data. So this one is from University of Georgia. So these are the things that they will put in their comprehensive learner record in terms of courses, activities. So this is what we say. They are not just worry about credit hours anymore. You know, people talk about skills, experiences, you know, all the learners' experiences should be there. So this is an example of Indiana University. All right, and number 6. Okay. Afraid that I don't have time, so try to rush through. Okay, already try number 6, Prof. Nabila. Okay, this one is on the career relevance. It's embedded earlier in the student journey. So this also to me is quite interesting trend where universities are moving the employability upstream, because normally we say, oh, first year you have to make sure they adapt to the university and so on. I see that in the US, they expose students to the university at the high school. The high school students, they can already take credits for, they call it dual credits. At the high school, they can attend maybe one, because I think the high school is like similar to our Form 6. So they can take some credits from the university. So when they go to the university, they are already being exposed and familiar. So when they are at the first year, it's quite, I think it's quite normal that they already need to go and think about employability. So they being exposed to more employability skills in the first year. So there are a few programs. And maybe here we also do something like that, but I guess their exposure is more. And I can see, of course, in the US, students always go in and out, you know, because of the fee structure of the universities. They move out and work and go back to studies again. You know, there are so diverse kind of student. This type of student are so diverse as well. So at the same time, maybe this is something that the universities should look into. You know, how do we actually expose students in the early or beginning of first year, as early as first year, in terms of career. Um, and a lot of these things, they are being exposed. For example, I think one of the main difference here and in the US, a lot of programs, they will put one of the quality signal or quality um, indicator of that university is they will tell you exactly, if you take this course, what will be your earnings. So I think it's quite interesting. All the universities will compete in terms of their alumni, what will be their earnings. So there is a projection there, because the fee is expensive. People want to know, if the parents want to send their children to that university, they already know what will be their earnings when they graduate from that university. So earnings or salary is one of the indicator of quality indicator of that program, basically. So I found that it's totally different than what we understand here, which is maybe it's good to expose, you know, what kind of things, but of course it's a competition among the universities. All right, so I give you some of the example here from Ruggers. They have E3SL passport program. This one, leadership immersion program. Some of it are being conducted by the employers themselves. Career exploration certificate, for example, and so on. Okay. All right, we come to the trend number 7. So the last trend is strengthening governance and QA for this. I'm using the word alternative credentials, because there are so many types of credentials. People are also very particular whether that kind of credentials is give you value added, or is it being trusted? Is it, you know, something that as universities, we need to make sure things are being have some quality assurance to it, you know, in terms of approval, review, the taxonomy. They because employers are very much concerned of the taxonomy, the skills taxonomy that they will be getting from a certain courses. So this what it means by review taxonomy, that's why the industry need to come in the program, or in when offering the micro credentials, in order to look at what would be the learning outcomes and the assessment standards, whether it actually meet the industry requirement. So this trend is reinforced by the Higher Learning Commission, which has highlighted alternative credentials as an expanding area needing careful quality assurance, faculty engagement, policy alignment, and academic integration. So these are some of how they govern their micro credentials, basically, based on a framework although I said maybe they don't have something like MQA at national level, they do have at a regional level, and also they a lot of these follow certain accredited associations or trusted associations in order to build up their own quality assurance system. All right. So based on my study, basically, I was looking at about 43 case studies and micro-credentials, QA documents, because basically my interest is a lot of it in terms of quality assurance framework related to these credentials. It can be summarized something like this with 5 models. We've seen that how the credentials is being embedded in the curriculum, how they're being integrated through the prior learning assessment and recognition of prior learning, I think quite similar to Malaysia. They have articulated pathways. They have agreement, how does these students basically go from here to here? What's the pathway? What's the credit package? If you take here, these micro-credentials, for example, what will be the pathway towards the final qualification? There is also a model of stackable sequence and also apprenticeship. So this one, work-based learning, is more directly with the workplace learning. A lot of it is maybe here we call it TVET, but there they call it career and technical education. Or community colleges, a lot of it, as I said previously, there's a model from Houston College or some of the colleges that works with WorkCred that one use this kind of workplace learning. So it can be also combination. All these models are not basically mutually exclusive. It can be a combination of all these models, which I guess is quite similar to what we have here in Malaysia. And what I learned basically when I compared with ASEAN and Malaysia, I can see that in the US, they are a lot stronger in experimentation. They just do it. Where ASEAN and Malaysia, we are stronger in framing trust, comparability, and policy alignment. We are very clear because all over the countries here have the national qualifications framework, and we work from them. Yeah, but in the United States, it's highly decentralized, so they can have innovation heavy in a way. So this is my opinion and our opinion, basically. Strong employer participation, rapid growth of badges, certificates, and digital records and recognition is often institution specific. So probability can be uneven. So in a way, that's my experience when I went to the States. They said, US is such a chaos for QA, but I'm glad I see the other side of it, and it is the innovation heavy in a way because they can just freely try out a lot of things there. Yeah. So these are the general recommendations. Maybe the first one is move from isolated micro-credentials to stackable pathways. We do have the unbundle and standalone, so make sure that the micro-credentials are created with values. Standardized recognition and credit transfer across institutions. So maybe if we go through some of our websites or whatever, I'm not very clear in terms of this. I also have children who try to apply a lot of universities. I guess like maybe in Malaysia, we need to be more transparent. If you go to most of the big state universities in the US, they are so transparent. The learners know where to go and very clear of the path and so on. So something that maybe can improve in terms of transparent in the digital world or in terms of online visibility. embed career relevance earlier in degree programs. This can also be something to look into. Build trusted digital credentials and learner record infrastructure. Maybe we can learn from this. And strengthen governance and outcome tracking, not just the number of offerings. So I guess we still need to improve. Not saying that US is good, but they need to improve a lot. So many things need to be improved, but something that I would say we can learn from them. So Malaysia have make sure the credentials has clear pathways, consistent recognition, early career integration, trusted digital records, and strong quality assurance. So these are some of the recommendations for institutions or the universities. Maybe look into the governance and QA, multi-stakeholders, co-design curriculum, something that can be long-term innovation in our programs. Maybe the shorter steps of innovation can be multi-stakeholders co-curation of the micro-credentials. But long-term, maybe it should be a new co-design, a new perspective from various stakeholders. And then recognition framework. Also the digital platform is also very, very important. All right, so this is my conclusion. So industry is not taking over higher education. We still need to work together. And what is very important is higher education need to adapt with these trends to become more modular, flexible. So make sure our education is more modular, flexible, transparent, and employment facing. So maybe you can share after this during the question and answer. What are your views? Another important thing is also I've read and a lot of discussions on providing higher education should now provide for 100 years of life, because like all the countries are towards all country negara tua ke arah negara tu towards longer life of people. So I guess higher education should try to adapt and provide education as long as we can. So there is a business opportunity for us. With that narrative, we can see that we have to change, not just because of employability or employment facing, but also to provide a lifelong learning, which nowadays people still want to learn, and the living years are extended now. So 100 years of life. So that's what higher education should provide. Okay, so that's all from me, Prof. Nabila. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening. So these are just the reference.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Hanim. That's a lot to unpack, yeah, with the 7 trends plus, the various propositions that you highlighted and whatnot. So, a very thought-provoking overview here that we learn from you, yeah. And it raises important questions about how universities actually balance depth and also workforce reinforcement or requirement, responsiveness or requirement. So now we shall turn to Associate Professor Dr. Wan Zuhainis, who will be helping us to reflect on how the global currents which are being highlighted, how is it translated into Malaysian higher education landscape? So, Dr. Wan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Prof. Nabila. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And a very good afternoon. Yang berbahagia, professors, distinguished colleagues, the members from the Academy Professor Malaysia Magnetic, fellow academics and all participants joining this online event. First and foremost, allow me to express my sincere appreciation to Academy Professor Malaysia for organising this and for having me in this very timely webinar on reimagining higher education for the future workforce, and credential innovation and workforce alignment in changing world. I'm pleased to be part of this, and we know that this topic is no longer peripheral in issues in higher education. Credential innovation, micro credentials, stackable learning, flexible pathway, they are now moving into the center of higher education reform, and this raises a very important question for us today. In the world of work is changing, if learners are changing, and if knowledge itself is changing, can our credentialing system remain the same? So this is the question I would like us to reflect together. And my session today, entitled "From Global Credential Trends to National Practice: Shaping the Future of Higher Education." The title itself suggests three movements. First, we look and then secondly, we look inward at the national policy directions and Malaysian practices, and thirdly, we look forward at what this means for universities, academics, learners, and the future landscape of higher education in Malaysia. In the first section just now, Prof. Hanim also has brought us into the global, especially in the US landscape, especially in the development, how it is developed in the United States, where skill-based hiring, industry certification, employer-led pathway, and how these new models, workforce policy are reshaping the higher education response to the economy. My task is to continue that conversation, but to bring it into the Malaysian context. And so I would like to make one central argument. Malaysia should not simply copy global credential trends, but Malaysia must contextualize them. We must take what is useful from global practice, or we must lead it. We must be able to interpret it through our own national aspiration, our own quality assurance system, and of course our own higher education mission and our own values. Central. This is not a race to produce shorter courses. Credential innovations. Okay, the word credential innovation must not become a race to produce shorter and shorter courses. It must not become a fragmented marketplace of certification, or it must not also reduce higher education to immediate job training. Instead, we should be looking at how credential innovation should help us to redesign higher education to become more flexible, to become more responsive, meaningful, more inclusive, while still protecting the academic depth, disciplinary integrity. That's where the values come in, and the wider purpose of education. And let us begin with the global picture. And across the world, even the meaning of credential is changing. For a long time, the main credential of higher education was the degree. The degree was the main signal of knowledge, skill, professional readiness. It was also the passport into employment and professional recognition. But today, the single credential is being challenged, not because the degree is no longer important, but because the degree alone is no longer sufficient to describe the full learning journey of individual. Now, graduate today may hold a degree but also complete online courses, professional certification, digital badges, boot camps. We have industry lab projects, work-based learning, community-based learning, and of course self-directed learning or self-determined learning. Some are formals, some are non-formal or informal, and some of them are credit bearing or not. And some of these credentials also recognized by universities, by employers, and of course by professional body. So this is why we are now hearing terms such as micro credentials, nano credentials, or nano degrees, micro masters. If you open, there are many platforms, even Coursera, edX, from the class centrals have the data on how stackable credential, alternative credentials, and they even have what they call as skill passports. So behind all these terms is a simple idea. Learning is becoming more modular, more visible, more flexible, more continuous, and portable. Okay, more portable. So the World of Economic Forum's Future Jobs Report 2025 tell us that employers expect 39% of workers' core skills are to change by 2030. This is very important figure, and it means that skill renewal is no longer something we do once in a while. It's becoming part of the working life itself. And the same report also highlights how the rising importance of the AI and big data and cybersecurity, technological literacy, resiliency, systems thinking, and lifelong learning. So the future workforce does not only need technical skill, it needs adaptive skills, it needs human skills, it needs values. And I do believe that one of the most important thing in the future workforce of the future skills is the needs, the capacity to learn, unlearn, and relearn. So this is where micro credentials become attractive. They promise speed, they promise flexibility, they are very specific or targeted skills development, and very closer alignment to workforce needs. But we in my point of view, we must be careful, because micro credentials there are not magical. They are useful, but they are not magical. Just now Prof. Hanim also mentioned about the data from OECD, and OECD also has reminded us that micro credentials can support employability, right, and lifelong learning, social inclusion, but their values deepen heavily. Okay, they, how this how we can relate this to the designing of the credential itself, the design quality, the learner needs, employer engagement, recognition, and also the whole ecosystem around them. UNESCO also reminds us that micro-credential must be part of the bigger learning ecosystem. And recognition, quality assurance, qualification framework, mobility, all these are critical. And without these, micro-credentials can become fragmented and confusing for some learners or employers and institutions. So the real issue is this: how do we ensure that micro-credentials strengthen higher education rather than fragment it? Okay, so this brings us to the Malaysian context. Malaysia is not starting from zero. In fact, Malaysia has already many, like Prof. Hanim also mentioned, how we have many policies, frameworks. We have many of the building blocks needed to support flexible education, lifelong learning, alternative credentials. Okay, we have the MQF, we have our Malaysian qualification agencies, we have APEL pathways, and that pathways we have APEL A, APEL C, APEL Q, APEL M, and the most recently is APEL S, for example. We have MOOCs, we have work-based learning to U2I, we have guidelines in apprenticeship degree, we have POISE, personalized learning, and EXCEL, experiential learning and competency-based education landscape. And we have lifelong learning programs, alternative credentials, and all this through the Malaysia Higher Education Blueprint 2026. That shows the demand for lifelong learning is already significant. So the question is not what else that we can have, you know, but the question is how do we connect what we already have. Okay, and we know that from here that learning is becoming more, as I mentioned, modular, visible, portable, and continuous. So this the challenge in Malaysia is the expansion without coherence that create the confusion. So we must move from the isolated initiative to a more integrated system where components work together coherently. And we also see that the goal to build the nation learning ecosystem where every meaningful learning experience can be recognized and valued is we need to redesign higher education to become more flexible, inclusive, and responsive. And that where we connect all the skill development to values, ethics, social mobility, and national development. And from the blueprint of higher education also, that shows the demand for lifelong learning, and the data have shown that the enrollment of lifelong learning from 2022 to 2023 actually exceeded 1 million learners. By mid-2024 to it was about nearly 1 million and had already enrolled in innovation or modules offering that is more to executive education and module-based pathway. And we can see that the university is now a lifelong partner through more deeply interconnected pathway, which is actually module-based. And from 2015 to 2024, for example, there are more than 700,000 candidates that obtain formal qualification through lifelong learning programs. And even the APEL initiatives are growing, right? And we have now APEL M, for example, for micro-credential. We have also APEL Q that have recorded more than 20 past qualification. And we know that these figures tell us something important. Flexible learning is not a future idea. It is already happening. The challenge is not to start, but the challenge is to scale, to coordinate, to assure quality and build trust. Trust is the key word. For credential innovation to work, learners must trust it. Just now, Prof. Hani also mentioned about how, trust through digital badges. Employers must trust it. Universities must trust it. Professional bodies, regulators, society, they must trust this. And the credentials that is not trusted will become just another digital certificate. Stackable credential that cannot be recognized will become just another isolated course, and flexible pathway that without a clear quality assurance will create more confusion rather than opportunity. So the future of credential innovation depends on not only on creativity but also on credibility. So let me now connect this with to a broader national education agenda, where national education reform also give us attention to quality, access and equity, resource readiness, efficiency, flexibility and also sustainability. And these are not separate from just higher education. From preschool until they are connected to until higher education. If we look at how the school system is moving toward meaningful learning, digital competence, digital literacy, well-being, and then higher education must be ready to receive learners who expect learning to be more meaningful, more flexible, and more authentic, more real life, more connected to life. So this means that universities cannot remain rigid when the rest of the education ecosystem is changing. And in higher education, credential innovation can contribute to this. It can help to close the gaps by opening pathways for working adults, rural learners, and those who did not follow traditional routes. And it can also, I do believe it can also raise the bar by making learning outcomes clearer, assessment which is more authentic, and skill which is more visible. Now, so what should Malaysia higher education do? The blueprint recognizes that learners today seek more than formal qualifications. They seek opportunities for personal growth, professional growth, career mobility, and lifelong development. So this is very important for us to think. And the 10 shifts, if you look at the 10 shifts in our Malaysia higher education blueprint, and the goal of the Malaysia Higher Education Blueprint 2026-2035 is to produce humanity-centric, purpose-driven nation builders. And if you look at the Shift 8, Flexible Education and Lifelong Learning, this is a very important shift in thinking. It means that university is no longer a place where young students come once, study for 3-4 years, graduate and leave. The university must become a lifelong learning partner. Okay, so then Malaysian higher education must position itself appropriately, carefully, because our aim is by 2035 we have a stronger national direction for flexible education and lifelong learning. And I believe that the Shift 8 is, the message is very clear. It must be the higher education must move beyond one fixed model. It must support learners through personalized pathways. This is where the multiple entry and exit points, modular learnings, micro-credential, industry-recognized certifications, recognition of formal, non-formal, and informal learning. So a learner may come to the university at 18, for example, for a degree. The same learner may return at the age of 30 for a professional certificate, at the age of 40 for reskilling, and then perhaps at the age of 50 for leadership development. And even at the age of 60 for personal enrichment or contribution to the community. Therefore, higher education must be ready. Must be ready to provide this opportunity. And this is visualized and documented in the Shift 8 of Malaysia Higher Education Blueprint. And with the strategies in recognizing the quality where the higher learning institution can be the dedicated lifelong learning anchors or hub for lifelong learning, and recognize the creation of alternative credential, including open educational resources or IOER, right? And we can see that from the 3 waves of implementation roadmap in the Shift 8, that by the time 2030, for example, have launched the regional lifelong learning partnership that is more sustainable and achieve the global recognition of Malaysia's high flexible education by 2035, right? And we have also embarked in a stackable degree pathway that is now happening in the public and private higher education institution. Currently in Malaysia, the 5 research universities are developing one shared programs, okay, masters in digital intelligence, where this is a stackable degree master's program that will be offering soon this year in October 2026, where this program is a new program that any learners and individual have more flexibility and options to take the courses within the 5 research universities and be recognized and obtain the academic qualification, their master degree. So the courses are being developed in the form of micro credentials, and the guidelines on the developing of academic program through stackable degree pathway has also been published. So this is part what the meaning of lifelong, life-wide or life deep learning. Lifelong learning is learning across the lifespan, right? Life-wide learning is learning across different spaces: workplace, community, online platforms, industry, family and society. That is life-wide. Life deep is learning that shapes values, learning that shapes identity, purpose, ethics. So when we talk about micro credentials, when we talk about alternative credentials, we should not only ask what skill does this certificate provide. We should also ask what kind of learners are we developing? Are we developing a learner who is employable only for today, or are we developing a learner who is adaptive for tomorrow? So we also must ask, are we producing a graduate who can actually work, who can actually perform a task, or they can work, either they can work with other multitasking, or are they able to work in a transdisciplinary setting? Are we nurturing a person who can think, lead, collaborate, act ethically, and contribute to society? So we must respond to industry needs, but we must not surrender the purpose of higher education entirely to industry. We must support employability, but not reducing education to employment only, which now we are looking into global sustainability agenda, looking into values-based education that we promote skills. We are not only just promote skills and competency, but also values. And we must embrace flexibility, but not compromising the quality. And it has to be, we have to move fast, but not become careless. Okay, so we must look at this in a way when we say we are unbundling the existing curriculum. That doesn't mean that we are just repackaging the content for institutional convenience, which will result into more isolated and fragmented progression. But we must look at the credentials as a pathway, designing it from competency for purposeful stackability. This of course will we are designing micro-credential from competency, not from convenience. So a micro-credential should not simply be a small piece that cut out from existing course because it is easy to offer, unbundle, but it should begin with a clear competency, and we should ask what the learner should be able to do at what level. In what context, with what evidence, how we'll assess it. And there's so many questions that we need to be able to identify so that we can design it and connect it to a larger learning pathway. And if we cannot answer these questions, then we are not designing a micro-credential. We only repackaging the content. A good credential must have clear learning outcome assessment, clear level of the quality assurance and evidence, and of course the recognition. Meaning that we need to build stackability with purpose and not just putting it into a small certificate together. Then each learning unit has a meaningful relationship with another learning unit. So again, if they can connect, then it will become pathways. If the micro credentials cannot connect, then it become fragments. So just now Prof. Hani mentioned about academic bank credits, right? And of course in Malaysia there are universities that have that already established their own academic bank credits like UTM and USM. And the discussion of academic bank credit is especially relevant. We can see, for example, MQA is now also developing the academic credit banks. And the ideas that learners can accumulate, can store and redeem learning credits towards qualification reflects the wider global movement towards the learning portability. And as I mentioned that, when like USM and UTM who already established their academic credit bank, and some other universities also are moving in this direction by establishing their own dedicated credentialing units and mechanism to coordinate micro-credential statements for credit transfer purpose. So this is not just an what do you call it, as administrative innovation. It is a new way of thinking about the learner journey. And I'm sure that most of our higher education institution are on the right track, and of course the direction from transactional to collaborative ecosystem, being shared responsibility between the universities, the higher education institution, recognizing prior learning, for example, as a bridge and not just as shortcut together from the industry. Based on the experience right now, we have what we call that appel. The employees, we are recognizing their prior experiential learning working in the industries, and now we have what we call as appel S, which recognize skill-based learning and competencies through evidence, through demonstrations, portfolios, and of course verified industry credential. So this is very important because many Malaysians, they have valuable learning experiences that has never been formally recognized. They may have learning through work, through industry practice, entrepreneurship, community leadership, and of course, and also maybe from digital platforms. So what we're trying to say is your prior experience, your learning matters. So when we able to identify it, document it, assess it, and we are able to recognize it. And but also, of course, it has to be evidence-based, right? And so that we will align to the current policies. And we want to make our, also mentioned by Prof. Hani just now, industry as co-designer, right? Co-designer, but keep the universities as guardian of qualities and values together with the industry. And we also, because the industries, they know the emerging skill needs and they can provide authentic projects and mentorship and employability signals. The universities must ask whether or not the learning is transferable or is it sustainable. Does this will actually develop analytical thinking, at the same time protecting the academic integrity. So the relationship between the universities and industry should not be one of the where industry dictates and university follows. It should be a partnership. We want our industries to work together with the universities to become co-own the program, to co-own the credentials, to co-own, co-develop the skill set that are needed. And universities brings rigor, industry brings practice, university brings reflection, industry brings current needs. So together they can design credentials that are useful, credible, and meaningful. And I do also believe that one of the most important points that we need to highlight in the credential innovation is to embed values, sustainability, and humanity into credential innovation. So this is perhaps one of the most important points for Malaysia. If micro-credentials only focus on technical skills, and we may produce people who are competent but not necessarily wise. And so we are not preparing our people for jobs, but we are preparing for life, for society, for uncertainty, for ethical decision making, to take action and responsibility for the future, for sustainability, for shared prosperity. So designing a high quality micro credential is not simply addressing, we must address inclusion, well-being. We must address, we must know how we can make credential innovation in Malaysian in spirit, not just in global in form. So there are a few questions or framework that we must ask when 7 rigorous questions. 1, what is the purpose of the credential exist? Why does this credential exist? So, second, who is it for? What will the learner be able to demonstrate? That will be number 3. Number 4, the assessment. What evidence will prove the learning? Number 5, who will recognize it? For what purpose? 6, stackability. Where it can lead next? How does it contribute to ethical, which is actually values, sustainable and meaningful learning? So if every micro-credential answer these 7 questions, we will have a stronger ecosystem. So again, micro-credential should not just be as a product, but as a pathway. And it has to be a recognized learning, in the form of recognized learning, and not just as a short course with competencies as evidence, nationally and trusted ecosystem. And it has to be mission driven, values internalized, and human centered. And ladies and gentlemen, the future of credential innovation in Malaysia is not only about micro-credential. It's about reimagining the architecture of higher education. It's about making the system more porous so that the learners can enter, exit, return, and progress. It's about making learning more visible so that competencies gained in different settings can be recognized. It's about making Malaysia a learning nation. And this is where I believe that Malaysian higher education has a unique opportunity. We can build a credential ecosystem that is not purely market driven but mission driven. We can build micro credentials that serve employability but also values. To me, this is the real future of Malaysian higher education. We can learn from global trends but design for national needs. We can use technology but remain human-centered. Not a future where universities are replaced, not a future where industry takes over, not a future where degrees disappear, but a future where universities become more open, more connected, more flexible, and more trusted. A future where degree remains valuable, but at the same time it is complemented by lifelong learning. So before I close, let us return to the title, From Global Credential Strengths to National Practice, Shaping the Future Malaysian Higher Education. Global trend tells us that credentials are changing. National policy tells us that Malaysia is ready to respond. Institutional practice will determine whether this response becomes meaningful. So the responsibility now is with all of us, from policymakers to institution, the management, the lecturers, to individual person in the higher learning institution. For policymakers, the task is to create enabling framework. We have our framework that can support the innovation. For quality assurance, you need to provide more efficient or clearer, credible mechanism for recognition. For university leader, the task is to align with the institutional strategy and should not be treated as isolated projects. And for academic, the task is to design learning that is rigorous, that is authentic and meaningful. And of course, for industry partners, the task is to co-create learning without narrowing the education to immediate workplace demand only. And for learners, for any individual out there, the task is to take ownership of the learning journey. And for all of us, the task is to ensure that the credential innovation serves human development and not only economic demand. So let me end with that, with this thought. The future of higher education will not be shaped by credential alone, but the deeper question is, what kind of learning? Learning for what purpose? Learning for who will benefit? And most importantly, Malaysia, we can help Malaysia to build a higher education ecosystem that is flexible. We can help us develop learners who are not only skilled but also ethical, not only employable but also adaptable, not only knowledgeable but also humane. So that to me is the future that we should shape together. Thank you very much. Wabillahi taufiq. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Wan Zuhainis, for grounding us in Malaysia's evolving practices. And we now see both the global as well as national perspective. Therefore, I would like to open the floor for dialogue. And actually, I can see there are at least three questions. I'll just pose this, and perhaps any one of you could respond. Yeah. The first question comes from Mujahid from UPNM. He has two questions. He posed two questions. The first one, how can Malaysia ensure that micro-credentials are recognized by industry as credible evidence of workplace competence, employability, and career progression rather than merely certificates of participation? Because we know that, some people, they take micro-credentials just to collect badges, collect certificates. So how can Malaysia actually ensure the micro-credentials are really recognized by the industry? Maybe we get response for that one first.
I can respond first?
Dr. Wan nanti.
Okay. boleh. Thank you, Datuk Mujahid, for the question. In my view, I think one of the approaches that we can use to ensure that the industry recognize the credentials is to co-create. We have many, we have over 25,000 micro-credentials now in Malaysia, based on the MQA's registration. But the numbers of how many which are actually industries co-owned, I don't have the numbers. However, I do know that there are many universities have embarked in with developing micro-credentials with the industries. We have also, for example, universities that work with automotive, develop micro-credential with automotive company, and these students, they spend time doing the practical in the automotive company or in the factory, and but for the theory part, they study it through micro-credentials, and that micro-credentials are actually from the people from the industry themselves. So not just co-developing the micro-credentials, but that's one approach. Another approach is, I do believe also that the subject matter expert, who are the educators themselves, should as lifelong learners, should upskill and reskill based on the current development. There are emerging technologies, advanced technologies, from the industries, whether be it at the national level or at international. The educators should be able, the subject matter experts should be able to identify the certification, the credentials that are needed for their learners. That means they themselves have to be updated in the sense of even upskilling and reskilling themselves.
Okay. All right. Maybe we can hear from Prof. Hanim. And while you're answering,
Yeah.
Prof. Hanim, how to make sure that micro credentials are recognized, maybe you can also respond to how the question of how can Malaysia develop a nationally and Asian recognized stackable micro credential?
Okay. Agree with the response just now. Dr. Wan already mentioned, you really need to co-design with the industry. Not just that, I think from previous experience, the professional body can also be part of the co-creators as well, the co-designers as well. So in that sense, I think the trust and the credibility is at a higher weight. And the role of the university, because we are educators, maybe we are good at designing the assessment, how to get that skills. Because normally the industry, they just want the skills, but the university has the role to help and guide in terms of the quality assurance, in terms of the assessment, how do you actually get it delivered clearly. So that is why when you co-create or co-design with the industry, and also if that industry has professional bodies, I think that will be more credible in terms of the value of the micro credentials. I'm not really like expert. I don't know what's the situation in terms of the work of stackable degree in ASEAN. I think Dr. Wan is more capable to answer the second question. But I know that if the micro credentials is issued by industry and professional, is a professional certificate. Normally, the acceptance is can be accepted. So normally, a big company, or you would accept that. But other than, we do have this qualifications framework agreement, AQRF, and with Malaysian Qualifications Agency. But if you're just talking about micro credentials, I'm not sure if you already have that in place. So maybe Dr. Wan can answer more on just the micro credential ecosystem, because it's not the final qualification. Yeah, I guess that's my response for that one.
Okay, thank you,
Prof. Nabila?
Prof. Hanim. Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you, Prof. Hanim. We have another question, and this time it's from Revita from Universitas Andalas Padang, Sumatra. Her question is, as AI increasingly automates technical skills, how can micro-credentials move beyond skill certification to develop uniquely human capabilities, such as critical thinking, intercultural communication, leadership, and I think even nurturing values, ethics? How do we do that? Anyone? Dr. Wan, would you like to try?
Thank you. From Universitas Andalas Padang. Okay. The question is, how can micro-credential move beyond skill certification and develop uniquely human capabilities? Now, I think the understanding of micro-credential itself is also very important. When we talk about micro-credential, it's not just a short course or a micro-learning that can be delivered online. It can also be delivered fully face-to-face and fully online or hybrid. That means there are part of the micro-credentials that can be done physically and online. And if it is fully online, you know, depending on the self-instructional materials or the sim that we develop to ensure that the learning outcomes of the micro-credentials are achieved, it is important that we also creatively design it so that the students will acquire the skill set that we have designed. What are the skill set that we want our students to achieve from the micro credential itself? So it's not the matter of the mode of the micro credentials, but is how we design it is for me is how we design it is very important. Because if you have technical competency, practical competency, it can also be trained, okay, through simulation, okay, especially when you are developing fully online micro credential, then you want to venture into more immersive learning in the virtual learning environment, where you may produce content that are involved in the metaverse environment that will include augmented reality, virtual reality, or mixed reality, or the task can be given as students to create the simulation themselves. So the idea of having micro credential, in order for them to develop the skill set, the critical thinking and all, it has to be designed so that the students will be empowered, and perhaps using the approach of experiential learning or learning by doing.
I suppose part of the question, because I'm also interested in this to a certain extent, Dr. Wan as well as Prof. Hanim. You can come up with stackable or whatever it is, micro credential, but can you give us like probably one example on how probably we can embed how the micro credential can be developed so that we can develop values, for example, or in the sense, another example, it could be values or leadership. Boleh tak bagi contoh sebenar ke, ataupun how do we do that?
Yeah, can I just add
Yes,
as well?
Hanim, I can echo after that.
We can hear from Prof. Hanim first.
Okay.
Sila.
Yeah, if you realize, I think last time I also have a wrong idea of micro-credential. When I went to the US, actually their badges, although they have digital badges and micro-credentials, a lot of them are actually face-to-face. So it's true. I think micro-credentials is a small unit of learning. It's not necessarily online. Yeah, so a lot of their, especially I mentioned about how they expose their first year students with all these passport programs, leadership program, all are experiential learning, because we still understand that learners need experience. They need that physical. They still need that, especially if you want to instill all the human side, or to develop certain skills. So it's very important. We have to understand how we design our micro credentials. It's not just online, unless you are fully online university. That one you cannot do anything about it. But other than that, it's a matter of designing a good micro-credential with the clear purpose, as what Dr. Wan Zuhanis mentioned just now. So, you just do like a normal that you should do is just make sure that you achieve what you need to achieve. Yeah, that's my response.
I think that is the misconception of micro-credential. When we think about micro-credential, we thought that it's all online. But it can be, as I mentioned, fully online or fully face-to-face or hybrid. And in terms of the values or leadership skills, it's just the same as we want to develop, identify it in the learning outcome themselves. What are the skill set? If you say leadership skill, values in terms of the empathy or integrity, or the 6 core of the value-based education from MQF, altruism, courage, for example. So it has to be the verb must be, it has to be in the course, in the micro credentials learning outcome itself, and it can be seen through the learning activities and the assessment. Of course, the digital badges actually as evidence that support the learning activity and also the assessment. So when we design the micro credential, whether it is for values or certain skill set like leadership, we need to design it the skill plus the context plus value. So in micro credential practical, we want it to be practical, but at the same time we still embedding values clearly. If let's say if you are designing in the fully online setting, in the virtual, we call it as a VLE, virtual learning environment. And I do believe that we want it to be a platform where we are developing a community of learners or community of practice. So that is how we design it, so that we want it to ensure that there are some collaboration happening in that setting. We want also to make the task that we that they have to lead a group, for example, or they have to do certain theory part, we have it online, but the physical part is actually to engage with the certain or specific community. So what approach that you use, what pedagogy that you use, are you using community-based learning approach, so it depends on how we want, what are the skill set that we want, and it has to be shown in the learning activities and assessment.
Dr. Wan, if you are given the opportunity to advise university today, what would be your top recommendation for embedding micro credential into its academic strategy?
Just do it. Just do it, because now you see, I think one of the challenges, okay, in public universities, if we talk about public universities, is we don't have, in JPA, we don't have a warrant for ID, instructional designer, okay? But some universities, some public universities, they have their own team to actually, they have their own center, they have their own team to develop the micro credentials. For most of the private higher education institutions, they may appoint a few IDs and a team. The lecturers can just give a micro in the form of Microsoft Word document, and then voila, a micro credential with all the animation, the videos and the sim, all already a module by itself can be developed. So however, I do believe that if we are not working towards micro credentials, then we are going to be left behind. I've been involved directly with the Malaysian Higher Education Blueprint, and also the lead writer for the first shift, which is actually the humanity-centric entrepreneurial and adaptive learner. And when we developed the blueprint, we have referred to so many references, and we keep and we even I actually took highlighted all the terms that are used frequently, and get AI to develop the word cloud And the biggest word in the word cloud is actually lifelong learning. Lifelong learning, sustainability, transdisciplinary, personalized learning, you know. So we can say this many hundreds of times every year. The question is where we are. Where are we? We know that it matters, but where are we? Are we moving towards that, you know? I'm sure that we know that there are many universities now who have embraced this and you know, working towards this very quickly, but there are still some universities are still taking this very casually and business as usual, which I think these are the people that are going to be left behind. And if you ask me what would be the thing, the you know, the first thing that we need to do now in the higher education is to make that change.
All right. Thank you. Prof, Prof Hanim, sorry, yeah.
Datuk Nuzaini ada nak tanya?
Zaini.
Tak adalah nak tanya. Just to give some comments if time still permits.
The time still permits. Only that is Prof Hanim is has to leave early, Datuk, because she has
Okay.
class.
About
Can
10
I
minutes
just-
more.
Okay, can I just make some comments? Firstly, thank you so much, Prof Hanim and Dr. Wan, for doing this for Academy Professor Malaysia Cluster Pembangunan Manusia. Yeah, I was really taken by Prof Hanim's comments about decentralization of the quality assurance in the US. Of course, it's a big country, so you know decentralization is more prominent in big, large countries like US, Australia, and so on. However, if you look at these are the things I usually say. If you look at many of the systems, higher education systems, a lot of systems in developed countries, even in Europe, in the UK, for example, is very much compliance-oriented system rather than us. They are much more enhancement-oriented system rather than us compliance. Even then, because in the beginning, without MQA or any quality assurance, universities actually went through or survived using the internal quality system itself, which is the Senate, the board, you know, all the committees. Anyway, with MQA or all the systems, we are still looking at how people comply to the system, and many are not looking at the enhancement role of the MQA. Yeah? So that's one. The other one is, thank you so much, Prof Hanim, because you gave a glimpse, because US is so big, a glimpse of all the types, different types of credentials or micro-credentials, and the different universities that are attempting to develop them, and how they are used, you know, whether employers use them or professional bodies take them in. So I think the way forward for Malaysia, although Dr. Wan said that there are more than 25,000, I know UKM has a policy on, I was Googling just now, policy, yes, on micro-credential itself. So universities have embarked, Malaysian universities have embarked on it. But I think what MQA or whoever is responsible is, for me, for example, I wanted to know the current status of micro-credentials in Malaysia in terms of what are the types, the areas offered by universities or industry providers or even professional bodies, the purpose of it, because you mentioned there are different purposes for micro-credential. Recognition and acceptance, whether by employers or in industry sectors or all the small industries. What was the word used? Transferability just now, or stackability, another word. Anyway, of those programs towards either formal qualification or job enhancement or job promotion, and whether if UKM, for example, each faculty has been asked to develop. I know each faculty has micro-credential courses. Are they cross-institutional? or cross border, for example. So having that status would actually see where we are and what else to improve. And I suppose this data, Dr. Wan, as you said, MQA has it, right?
MQA, yeah.
It'd be quite nice if MQA could get a body to
Analyze it
go to
actually, yeah, to
yes,
share.
and then you get a real status. Then you can, then
Mm.
only you can say, oh, IPTS actually have developed, but we just do not know. IPTA has developed, but they are more for a different purpose and less employer collaboration and so on. So these were some of the things that I would have loved to see. As we move towards the rancangan Malaysia, rancangan pendidikan tinggi, you know, in the future, and this will be good for PhD thesis or for research projects and so on. Then I think people can quote us when we research and then we publish, and then there's real data, real information that people can use, I think. That's my comment, actually. No questions. I think you both have done a wonderful job. Thank you so much to both of you and
Thank you, Dato'.
moderator.
Prof. Hanim, you want to respond to the earlier question, or do we still have time?
Yang mana?
You have to go.
Mungkin I jawab. Ada yang tak jawab lagi ni daripada ni Aizuddin Sekolah Pandai Malaysia. Interesting. Yeah, congratulations. They have started in high school. So I think banyak je micro credentials has been around, I think industry partners ke apa, tapi when you say this dia tak partner with high school ni, actually some of our universities micro credentials ada yang general topic is open to high school, so maybe you can contact any universities to work together for your specific purpose. I'm sure university suka nak work with the school, you know. Yeah, you can just contact them. That is how we develop the micro credentials as well, with certain purpose and with partners.
Probably
maybe
itulah kot yang tadi.
I mean Dr. Wan would have a better response to this,
Yes, actually I have been involved with the bahagian curriculum Kementerian Pendidikan KPM in terms of developing their micro credentials. They are in the process of developing micro credentials for certain courses, especially for the secondary school. But of course, they're going to pilot the micro credentials for lower level and also the secondary schools soon.
So Dr. Wan, if for Aizuddin if he wants to like expand this micro credential, whom can he contact?
In bahagian kurikulum Kementerian Pendidikan Malaysia.
The specific person,
yes. Ada dia punya Puan Sarina Salim.
So maybe Encik Aizuddin can take that note, yeah. And maybe last for kita bagi Dr. Hanim before Prof Hanim before she goes off. Prof, how to? This is from Prof Kalai. She's asking how to measure the achievement, especially if it is skilled focus other than examination.
Yeah, I think Dr. Wan also mentioned just now, when you want to measure your outcomes, especially skills, you know, there are a few things, but normally skills is on the psychomotor. Maybe you call it exam or hands-on exam in a way. It's not examination, but you observe through observation or through real experience of conducting something. So it's more on the psychomotor. I think that's how you normally measure the skills. There are also things like, especially for employers, they do like on-job training. So that is also how they measure the skills through on-job training. So there are various ways. Another thing, maybe if it's on the skills with community, so community service, so everything that is hands-on normally can be used to measure the skills. I don't know if that answered the question.
Maybe I can echo the
yes, Dr. Wan, go ahead.
Because the question is about skills, right? How do you measure the measure the skill focus. So of course it's about doing, and when we say a skill, it has to be skill focused micro credential. It has to be based on performance based. That means we ask them to do something. So it's not just based on it's not exam based, but that's why we don't actually use the word examination or final examination. We use penilaian akhir evaluation, final evaluation. So it depends on the skill focus also, whether it is digital skill or leadership skill or laboratory skill, or whether it is what workplace skills, or there are many skills that needs to be demonstrated. So it is a practical task that needs to be demonstrated, that can show or that can reflect the target skill. So, but it has to be produced by evidence, like video or portfolio, prototype, and there's so many, approaches.
All right. Suppose thank you all. I don't know whether I have
Prof, putus-putus ke
Line
saya punya
putus.
line?
Putus.
we basically at 4:30 and Zuhainis. When is my line bad? Can you guys hear me?
You
Yes,
breaking
but
up.
terputus.
Oh, Prof, dah terkeluar ke, Prof?
Oh, okay. Since Prof Nabila terkeluar. She's back. Okay.
So,
Teruskan Prof Nabila.
kalau tak ada soalan, boleh je
Tapi
kita
macam frozen tu. Okay.
Unmute Prof.
But
Still
I'm saying thank you very much to both our panelists. I think we came in with some questions. We wanted to know more, but we are going off with a lot more questions. And like what is highlighted just now, there are many areas I think that we can, go into
Explore.
further for
Deep dive.
further research. So with that, I suppose thank you again, Prof. Hanim and Dr. Wan for your
Okay, still apa ni?
hilang-hilang.
Tak ada ambil gambar ke?
Nabila.
Pak Azia boleh continue.
Organizer tak ada ambil gambar ke?
Gambar.
Prof Azia, silakan
Ada orang nak ambil
teruskan
gambar?
Prof Azia.
Naima akan ambil gambar, insyaAllah. Naima.
sharing.
Ya,
Sebab-
Prof.
Okay, thank you very much.
We need people to turn on their camera lah.
Okay.
Your, insights and also for
I think Prof Nabila is still talking.
Dia nak buka kamera. Nak ambil
Okay.
gambar.
Thank you very much, Datuk Nozaini and APM for organizing this.
Thank you Magnetic and Prof Hanim.
Welcome. Thank you so much, everyone, for inviting me.
Okay, Naima beritahu ya when you're done.
Okay. Sekali lagi. 1, 2, 3. Okay, Prof.
Okay.
Okay.
Can see familiar faces tu.
Okay, terima kasih. Minta maaf semua. Terima kasih.